This is Jessica Jung, lead producer of Peridot, and you're listening to Ingress Insights.
Additional intel available.
Hello agents, and welcome to a special episode of the Ingress Insights podcast. This is an Inverse Insights episode. In these episodes we go over things that are not Ingress. This time, as you'll hopefully have seen by the title, we're going over Peridot and talking with Jessica Jung, the lead producer of Peridot. The interview, we're going over a range of questions, ones that I've got, ones that the community have submitted, and ones that just kind of came up naturally. So it's a good discussion on Peridot. I laughed quite a lot in it, just to spoil that. If you haven't played Peridot, it's Niantic's only other owned IP that's just them, besides Ingress. So in Peridot, you raise these little creatures called dots, and you level them up, feed them, teach them a trick, play with them, get them to interact with the environment. It is an always-on AR game, so you'll always see your background when you're playing with your dots and teaching it tricks, stuff like that. And you can send them foraging, do things like fighting the Gloom and the Blighted dots, which I'll cover in the interview as well. Peridot's also expanded beyond its own mobile title and gone on to various other devices such as the MetaQuest 3, Apple Vision Pro, and Snapchat's spectacles. I think they're Snap Specs actually. So they are trying to obviously expand the franchise as much as they can. If you started back in the early days of Peridot, you might remember there was a gameplay loop where you had to pay for nests, so it was £5 a nest at the time, and you couldn't progress rather than gameplay loop without doing that. That has since changed. You now get nests and things like that, level ups, daily check-ins, so if you can be entirely free to play on it, which is what I do. I'm level 34 now, maybe nearing level 35. I've got about 30 dots at the moment on my game that I switch between as and when I need them. And I also name a lot of my chaos traits, which are some like procedure generated traits. I name them after Ingress things. So I just recently named a buried memories trait that I thought came up that reminded me of that series. I'll probably carry on, find one for Plus Alpha and name that. That's a short intro to Peridot. It's available free in the App Store and the Play Store. As said, available on the other devices as well for things like Hello Dot. I will get on now to the interview with Jessica Jung, and we go over quite a lot of things, like say community questions, stuff like that as well. So if you think of any you want to ask people about Peridot in future, we'll probably have someone else on from Peridot, or maybe ask him or Jessica again in future. So please do leave any comments about questions you've got, and I'll do my best to remember those for next time. So on now to the interview. Hello agents, welcome to a special section of the Ingress Insights podcast. This is our 5th Inverse Insights episode where we talk about things that are not Ingress, and this time we're talking about Peridot for the second time. So previously it was an episode where I spoke with Asim about Peridot and went through the changes to the game then. Now I thought I'd see how things are going as we're getting into 2025 and see how Peridot's evolved and changed in that time. For this one, we have Jessica Jung, who's the lead producer on Peridot, who's agreed to come and answer some questions, have a chat with us, and talk all about Peridot. So, first of all, Jessica, do you want to introduce yourself and say what it is that you do on the Peridot team?
Yeah, I would love to. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for having me on this podcast. My name is Jessica Jung. I use she, her pronouns. I am the lead producer on Peridot at Niantic. A little bit about me. I joined Niantic about 3 years ago. I've only worked on Peridot. It has been my main team that I've been assigned to. I was there for the development of the mobile game, and as we'll talk more about today as we expand Peridot onto other platforms as well, I'm leading a lot of those initiatives, and I can talk about some of those in a bit. Prior to my work at Niantic, I was a game producer at Hangar 13, which is a Take-Two studio, like 2K. They had an office in the Bay Area where I'm based. So I was working on a whole bunch of titles, helping support their proprietary game engine development. Yeah, so my background has always been in games and in game development, and I've really enjoyed my time at Niantic and on the Peridot team.
Great. And you kind of hinted at it then, but Peridot's expanded far beyond the mobile title now, being on like MetaQuest, helping people out with physical therapy, things like that. I mentioned that I obviously spoke with Asim back in June earlier this year, and now we're 6 months later. So how do you think Peridot's evolved and changed in that time, both as the mobile game and the franchise in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, since June, a lot of things happened. I think a little bit before June, in early May, on the 1 year anniversary of the launch of the mobile game, we announced Hello Dot, which is, a lightweight micro experience on the Meta Quest 3. So as part of that initiative in the second half of this year, we've really tried to expand our presence onto other spatial computing platforms. So we have Hello Dot on the Meta Quest 3. We also support Hello Dot on the Apple Vision Pro. And then separately, in conjunction with Snapchat, we've developed Peridot Beyond on the Snap Spectacles. I think that, right now we're testing out and trying to, isolate some of the nuances of each of the platform. Even though Hello Dot is both on the Meta Quest 3 and the Apple Vision Pro, during development, there's some small nuances and differences in the hardware and the software, especially from a development standpoint. So, I think we're trying to experiment and tinker with a lot of this new hardware and kind of, learn from each of them. So for instance, the Meta Quest 3, the Apple Vision Pro, those are, like big headsets meant for indoor use. They have really wider field of views, whereas I think like the Snap Spectacle 6 are really meant for outdoor use. And so the kind of use case, the gameplay for each of those are a little bit different. And I think by getting onto each of these platforms, we're trying to absorb and learn as much as possible, especially, this new realm of AR, XR game design, spatial game design in multiple contexts, how they're different, how these gameplay designs, best practices converge, et cetera. We're tinkering with the potential for cross-platform on that front, interconnected gameplay. So there's lots of kind of experimenting happening. I think it speaks to our DNA as kind of like an experimental team at Niantic. So I would say that's, the main way that we've evolved. But also for the mobile game, I think you've called it out. We've really done a lot on the social impact front for people who've been following along. We partnered with Augment Therapy, which, is developing AR physical therapy and gamified fun experiences for people in clinical settings. We're doing some multi-phase, research with those folks who are really excited to kind of make a difference on that front. We've partnered with Planet Play and their Make Green Tuesday Moves initiatives to support, gaming and sustainability. And, a huge shout out and thank you to all of our players for supporting that initiative. I would love to say more, but I just want to say that you all are an incredible community and doing an amazing job of supporting that initiative. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. That's something that really, is deeply personal to me. We have Pause with Peridot, this like micro experience built on Niantic Studio, WebXR for mindfulness. We did a little bit around pride awareness. So lots of things happening just in a bunch of different directions. So yeah, that was one.
I know I was thinking about the Snap Spectacles, especially thinking it harkens back to things like Google Glass, which may have been a bit too early then, but now it seems everyone's got on the AR glasses train and we're going down that way, even though they look a bit big at the minute, I think, when I've seen people wearing them. But I think we are getting there slowly. Maybe by the time we get to the next iteration, it'll be smaller and more lightweight.
Yeah, I think Google was definitely ahead of its time with the Google Glass. I almost wish more people would lean into the kind of futuristic look of the Google Glass. I know everyone called them ugly, but I personally thought they were very cool. So
I did see one on sale recently and was tempted just to have it for the
that's
nostalgia.
an artifact. Yeah, I was going to say that's a moment in history that we might look back fondly on.
And obviously, we've talked now about Peridot's expanded to multiple platforms. Is there anywhere you're kind of aiming at next with the micro experiences or full apps or anything like that?
I think at a high level, we're really invested in expanding Peridot as a franchise. So we're constantly watching the news like every other, enthusiast or spatial computing XR, people. So we're watching the news as other players come into the market. We're really excited to see what those devices are like, between the hardware specifications, what the development could be like on those devices. I can't really comment on, whether we're going to be on a specific headset or a specific device or what have you, but just that, we're keeping, I'll just say like we're paying attention to all those devices. We're keen to see what they're like. We're only on a handful for now, but there's a possibility that that changes.
Other ways you might see the franchise expanding. I know, obviously, Ingress is the other Niantic only owned property alongside Peridot, and they did an anime alongside that. Is that something you might look to for Peridot, like Peridot movies, TV shows, things like that, maybe?
Well, I was going to say no comment, but maybe that's a little too. Nothing is off the table. I think that, like you mentioned, there are games like Ingress that started as a game. Then they have like an anime. They have shows. They have different merchandise, etc. I think that there's lots of games that have started out on that front in games as a medium and then expanded into other mediums. I certainly think that is on the table. No guarantees, but that is something that we've thought about deeply.
Just moving on now to, I know we've mentioned where Peridot might go in 2025. Is there any specifics you're able to share on things you'd like to do? Or is it kind of all up in the air, deciding, I know, budget, things like that that have to be done?
So yes, I want to preface it with, we're still tinkering, experimenting with lots of things, but I do want to call back to something that Asim, I think, mentioned back in June, which is this idea of a broader interconnected experience. We see Peridot as a franchise that can live on multiple platforms. And frankly, the byline that we used, always by your side, like we are super committed to that vision because Peridot from the very beginning was always, we were always faced with hardware limitations and technological limitations, but the vision was always like this adorable virtual companion that is with you in the real world. And I think mobile represents a very specific form factor, a very specific game based on the technology that we have. But as we start experimenting and tinkering with spatial game design and getting on the Quest and that Vision Pro and Snap Spectacles, and glimpsing at the feature of truly outdoor AR glasses, we are enamored with this idea that there is a version of Peridot that can live on multiple platforms, that can be with you as you go out into the real world, and then it can be something that's more maybe immersive when you're at home and there's different types of gameplay elements. That is an idea that we keep coming back to, and I think we're really invested in this idea of this interconnected experience.
Yeah, I can imagine something like the spectacles, wearing those outside. You go out for a walk, and then you come back and go on the mobile device, and it syncs things up on there. I guess that's kind of where you're aiming at.
Yeah, and I think even more than that, like I think sometimes like there's a set notion of what games are like just based on the hardware limitations and based off of like the ways that people have been gaming for a long time. So like, console gaming has a very specific like pattern or kind of,
Yeah,
heartbeat to how people play console games. Like you come home, you sit down at the couch and you play for a couple of hours. But the way that people play on console is different from, PC gaming, is different from mobile gaming. And so we don't really know what the steady state gaming experience for true outdoor AR glasses might look like. Maybe it's not something super distracting and it's something that occupies all your attention, but it's more of like a passive experience that's a companion with you as you experience the real world, right? So I don't think, dare I say, I don't know that anybody really knows what gaming on outdoor AR glasses or like that new form factor looks like. So I think our goal is to learn and to experiment and really kind of, take shots on goal and try different things.
you said
But
obviously
we're
you're a very experimental team, so we're trying
right.
various things.
Yeah, some of it might work better than others, but I think the goal is to kind of learn, but also provide an experience where Paradox can really be with you wherever you are.
Thinking about Niantic and VPS. So in Ingress, there's things that you could do using AR for doing overclock. Pokemon Go has Pokemon Go playgrounds that are coming soon. I saw them on my Campfire map recently. Is there a way that Peridot might use that in the future and use all these VPS activated locations?
We really love this concept, Pokemon playgrounds, overclock, AR specific location based gameplay. It's like one step closer to realizing Niantic's vision for geolocated games overall. I mean, we're definitely leaning really hard into location based AR beyond just the phone, of course. I've talked a lot already about true outdoor AR glasses, but I think beyond just the form factor or the hardware, we really want to be able to provide users with hyper specific location based gameplay that is tailored more specifically to the waypoint or the habitat that you're at. Maybe that could change the gameplay, that could really impact or provide you with a specific experience. Obviously, the form factor will play a big role in that. So like it's going to be different on mobile versus maybe outdoor AR glasses. But again, we're still experimenting, can't talk more about the concrete plans that we have on that front. But I will say that, Pokemon Go and Ingress are really paving the way for us to look at how players are reacting and responding to those features. What do they love most about it? How are they most engaged? What is the feedback like from the community? And we're thankful that, we can take the learnings from those games. And that's definitely going to inform how we think about AR glasses, inform location-based gameplay or location-based, VPS gameplay in the future.
I didn't get to really chat about this feature with Asim last time because I don't think I'd use it a lot. So I want to bring it up before getting to community questions. So for those that don't know, in Peridot on mobile, you get the the gloom that's around where it brings blighted dots, and you can go and get those at locations, and they come with chaos traits, which are a cool thing as well. I'm just wondering, how did the team kind of come up with doing the blighted dots and having them as a thing? Because I think it's quite cool. It reminds me of Pokemon Ranger when I'm doing circles around them to capture them. So
It's so funny you talk about Pokemon Ranger. I'm pretty sure screenshots from that DS game are in our like inspo mood board somewhere in our files as we brainstorm this feature. I think you are spot on. I can neither deny nor confirm that kind of lineage, but I think in general, Gloom and Blighted Dots, we wanted to give individual dots more purpose and tie the specific characteristics of each of those dots to gameplay in a way that felt meaningful. So individual dots with specific traits intrinsically are rewarded or provide value to the player based on the gameplay, because certain dots are better at dazzling certain blighted dots than others will be. And we really like this idea of there's a reason why you have multiple dots, hundreds of dots with minute differences in traits beyond just our interpersonal subjective attachment to them, because I know a lot of dots or keepers have lots of favorites, but we wanted to reward you for having multiple dots and having a variety of them. So that kind of gameplay lever, I think, gives us access to providing that value to players. We really like that kind of gameplay, and I think we want to bring that gameplay onto some of the experiences on the other platforms as well. So like headsets on outdoor AR glasses, that I think you'll see that principle kind of come up again and again. I think much more high level, Peridot is like this very magical and whimsical game. And to some degree, we thought it would be interesting to maybe like bring a sense of stakes into the world, right? And to channel the whimsy of dots for good, but also acknowledge that the world is a complex place sometimes. And we wanted to kind of involve the wider world within the story of Peridot.
I definitely enjoy them and selecting all the chaos traits. I won't lie, I name most of mine something Ingress related, so there's those out in the world for people to use.
Oh yeah, I didn't talk about chaos traits at all, but I'm pretty sure that's like one of our favorite features we've ever shipped. We love chaos traits, and we love that the community really like took to them super well too.
So next up, I've got some questions from the community. I'm going to apologise to the community in advance because I've got the names written down here, but I might pronounce your names wrong. So apologies if I do that. So for yourself, Jessica, how many dots have you got at the minute, and are there favourite traits amongst the team?
So I quickly pulled some of my coworkers for their traits, but I would say for me specifically, I would say I have about like 100, give or take. It's hard for me to count, frankly, because I have way more on my developer account than I do on my personal account. But I would say I'm more of like, I'm very attached to my favorite dots. Don't tell them I play favorites, but I definitely have some favorites. I think a sim just by himself has over 500 dots. Our creative director is also in that ballpark. In terms of favorite traits, let me see. I have some user submitted or some team member submitted ones. I think a Sims is a chaos trait that's called punk rock. It's his favorite because he named it himself, of course. And it kind of looks like a mohawk. Will, his favorite trait, Will is our technical director. His favorite trait is the one called They Who Challenge the Sun, or I think that's one of them. And that's one that Will came up with during development. So of course that's his favorite. Mine, I don't remember the exact chaos trait name for it, but there's this dot called Skull Dot. Internally, it's like it has a black coloration with a white pattern and a face mask that makes it look like a little bit like Dia de los Muertos, like a skeleton outline. This is going to be a deep cut for anybody listening, but I'm a huge fan of the Locked Tomb series. It's like a sci-fi series about necromancers in space. And one of the motifs is that the main characters cover themselves in like black face paint and have like skull outlines and stuff. So I love Skull Dot because the Locked Tomb, Gideon the Ninth, those are some of my favorite sci-fi books. And I just love that homage. So if anyone gets that and is a fan of the Locked Tomb series, I'm here for you.
Sounds quite cool. I'll have to add that to my list. I've not heard of it before now. So I think I'll mention here one of my favorite traits is one I've got for one of my chaos traits, and it's I think a main that's all over everywhere. It looks quite chaotic. So I decided to go with Machina for that one. For the Ingress thing that takes over portals is chaotic in where it links to.
Oh
Stuff
yeah,
like
we
that, so.
loved the creativity, but also sometimes these traits are so outrageous, and we love people are leading in.
I forgot. I don't know whether I mentioned where that came from. Super Gen. If I didn't mention that, sorry, Super Gen. This one is from Rowan the Aeronaut. So they said, where do you see the storyline of Peridot going, such as the Peridoctors and the Gloom that I mentioned as well?
So in terms of like the specific storyline, unfortunately, like I can't give like any plot points or hint at what's happening in the future of the world of Peridot and the Gloom. I'll be honest, I don't think, we 100% have like a plan, that a narrative arc that we're following. But I think, to keep it high level, we're super focused on building a franchise. So I think it's highly possible that, that the lore will continue to be expanded and fleshed out. I think I've mentioned before that other franchises started as games and moved into other mediums. I think like Ingress is a good example. I think if, like the Riot model where they have like this broader Summoner's Rift universe, that's certainly something that we've looked at as well. I think it's very possible that we'll kind of explore heading in that direction. And Paradoctus was our first attempt at crafting this like narrative-rich world for Peridot. I don't know what the future of Paradoctus and the Gloom looks like, but it's possible that more stories about the world of Peridot will come up. I think we see it more like, oh God, this is a very used phrase at this point, but like the Peridot cinematic universe, like multiple stories happening within a larger context. And I think that approach makes sense for us because we see Peridot as more like multifaceted beyond just games. So we're
not just tied to the mobile, tied to the headset, kind of expanding more than that.
exactly like the IP that we've created. I think there's so much charm. The characters are so cute, and I think there's so much potential. So I think we want to keep it broad and open and leave the creative folks at Niantic and on the team room to kind of explore the story. So I don't want to hard commit and say we'll go this direction or that. Just we are thinking about the world. So.
And it was mentioned here from Rowan the Aeronaut as well, say the mobile version seemed a bit left behind whilst other versions are being developed. Is it planned to be picked back up to do more with it?
Yeah, I think we have gotten this question a bit. And I guess I want to say like, yes, I think development on the mobile game has slowed down, but we haven't stopped it entirely. We've shipped updates recently with new cosmetics. We've announced partnerships for various social impact initiatives in conjunction with the mobile game. We have some infra updates, pending. Can't really talk about that too much. Infra standing for infrastructure, a lot of, like the nuts and bolts of the game. But overall, I think, Peridot is a franchise that Niantic is really committed to. And we want it to be a franchise that a player can experience in a number of different ways. Our goals, in 2024, were about expanding the various platforms that the game was available on. But that does not mean that we're abandoning mobile. And I think I've, talked about this concept in the past earlier. And Asim has also talked about this, as we think about a much broader, larger interconnected experience, cross-platform, mobile headset, outdoor AR glasses. We definitely picture mobile as kind of a key role in this vision, whether it's tying, different gameplay elements together, maybe, or if it's, a baseline for even computing, like it's the future is very kind of open-ended, and we're continuing to experiment and tinker. So I don't think we're abandoning mobile completely.
I think this was a mix of questions, these next two. So just so I say the names so I don't forget, from Classic Wolf 801, Carpet Zero, and Derailed at the Station. So it was mentioned that most like dot show, playdates, and family tree were mentioned during the development of the game. Are those still being worked on? I get if you can't say, but I remember myself as something being talked about, like a dot version of Crufts, whatever that would be called, where you show off and like Nintendogs, that kind of thing.
First, yeah, we love those future ideas. I think, a lot of those same ideas have come up during our own development internally. I think what's happening is that we've kind of looked at what are the main features, or like what are the key design pillars of a feature like Dot Show, right? That's, customize, grow, and dress up your dots, show them off, like have some kind of social component to it where, players can submit their own dots. It's like the Westminster
Meet
Dog
with your
Show, or
friends, that kind of thing.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think we really love those principles. And if anything, I think we want to put those game design principles not just in one feature, but as just like a design pillar that, showing off your dot. I guess in the industry, we call it like peacocking, right? Being able to customize and really, build up the dot as you'd like to see it fit. Show them with your friends, maybe a light competition with each other. I think those are gameplay pillars that we really think are crucial to the future of the franchise. And so we want to get those ideas into new features or into new game in some way, shape, or form. Playdates specifically, I think we really like the idea, and we actually think it makes more sense on a headset format where like the dots are right there in front of you and it's your own living room. So we're experimenting with that type of gameplay on devices like the MetaQuest. MetaQuest 3, I think Asim did an interview maybe a couple months back with Upload VR, and he was actually able to preview a small glimpse of a Playdays feature on the mixed reality headset. So that is something we're certainly tinkering with. And then in terms of the family tree, we've also loved this idea. Our players have incredible ideas. We really love this idea from the beginning, but it turned out to be very challenging to implement. I think both from a kind of technical back end level, but also for an ideal player experience for a litany of other reasons I can't really get into right now. But it was really challenging, I think, to kind of think through and implement. And so I don't know what the future of a family tree looks like, but it's still always in the back of our mind.
I was going to say, I think anyone that's played The Sims for a long time knows how complicated family trees get and how long those take to go through once you've had going for a while. So
Right.
I
Like
get that.
a Sims Chaos trait, I think, had like over 1,000 progeny that have inherited that trait. So I'm like, oh, just thinking through the math of mapping that out. Yeah, it's tough. I
Yeah.
really, we can see the appeal. Maybe if we can find some way of implementing it, but again, we'll see. We'll try and figure it out, but no guarantees.
And then the last question, which is from JujuB underscore 0-0. I don't know if that's meant to be a little face at the end, but they want to know where's best to provide feedback on the game so the team can respond.
Definitely the best place to provide game feedback is Campfire or Discord. I think there's a number of different unofficial Discord servers related to Peridot. So we kind of look at both places. Yeah, and we do, pay attention to the feedback, and we hear the players.
I don't think I mentioned this, but I'm currently a Wayfarer ambassador. And I think one of the other Wayfarer ambassadors, A, is for Andis, does one of the Peridot ones. I can link to that. He keeps that running pretty smoothly.
I just want to give a huge shout out to all of our community members who do a lot of that work for the love of the community. We appreciate them so, so much. And Peridot would not be the game that it is without all of their work. And, we just super appreciate them. So I just wanted to shout them out.
It's great. Is there anything else you want to let the community know, or share with the community about Peridot or about yourself, your own work?
Nothing more than what I've said. I think I'll just reiterate that, like, as Niantic's own IP and original intellectual property, Peridot, I think, will continue to play a big role in Niantic going forward. I think that there's, a lot of it, so much potential. I will say, like, internally, that's something that we hear from our stakeholders and from other team members all the time. It's just Peridot is so much potential. And I think, we're doubling down and we're reinvesting in so many different ways. So lots of new Peridot things coming in general. So thank you all for supporting us and sticking with us.
One last thing that I thought about, and you said that, is there anything you've noticed the other teams try and borrow from Peridot when they're like saying, oh yes, this is great, the stakeholders happy, maybe we could take X and put it in our game?
I will say, I think we are earlier than some of our other products when it comes to expanding onto spatial computing platforms. I think that's part of Niantic's, overall vision is to, explore in that realm. So I think, some of our learnings with respect to game design on mixed reality hardware, spatial game design, outdoor AR glasses, like, I wouldn't be surprised. Well, I'll preface that and say I don't work on these teams, so I can't say, I can only speak from our perspective. But the goal has been that whatever our learnings are on Peridot, that we would share those out with other game teams and the company writ large. I think one thing we're really proud of, and I don't know if other game product teams are thinking about it, but if you're listening to this, we're really proud of the fact that we're leaning into social impact and we're doing all these partnerships with, on things like sustainability, mental wellness, physical therapy. Granted, it's our own IP, so we don't have, other IP holders, and we have a lot more flexibility, but we really love that angle that we're able to take. So yeah, I'm going to plug that just a little bit.
I think you've done a lot more. I know Ingress years back did a Missions for Good thing, and I know there's been Pokemon Go Community Day food drives and things like that recently, but I think Peridot's certainly leading on the social impact bits at the minute.
I mean, I think the company as a whole does a lot of work on that front, and I definitely recognize that we're in a very good position to be doing all of that work. So just got to take the opportunity and make the most of it.
Definitely. So thank you again for joining us, Jessica. So I'll get things wrapped up here and then get you all moved on to the next bit of the podcast. Thank you all for listening to that interview with Jessica Jung, the lead producer on the Peridot team. Hope you all enjoyed hearing updates about the Peridot cinematic universe and where the franchise may be going in the future, as well as the community questions that got answered. That's all there is for this special episode. So next time we'll be looking to cover another game, maybe a Niantic one, maybe a non-Niantic one. It honestly depends how people's schedules are that I've got lined up. If there is a game you want to hear about and want me to try and seek someone out to interview, please do let me know. Happy to reach out to various contacts that I've got and see what's doable. In the meantime, hope you all have a great day and happy hacking, agents. Thank you, agents, for listening to the latest episode of the Ingress Insights podcast. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can do that on a few channels. So on Threads under the name ingress.insights, on Instagram under the name ingress.insights as well. Twitter/X, which posts episodes of the podcast, is under Ingress Insights, no dot in that one. And you can also watch these episodes on YouTube under Ingress Insights Podcast. You can send us a voice message by visiting the podcaster's Spotify page. And finally, you can buy Ingress Insights merch, such as mugs, pins, t-shirts, by going to epublic.com/user/ingress-insights. And on there, you'll see all the designs that we've got listed at the moment. There are some new ones that will be coming up at some point soon, but you can buy your Ingress Insights mug, hats, t-shirts, tote bags, anything like that you want. Thank you again for listening. Hope you tune in next week. If you do like the show, please do rate it on the podcast service you're listening to. I look forward to speaking with you all about Ingress again.
Intel package transferred.